Hi, I'm Derrick Story, professional photographer, writer, publisher of the digital story, and curator of the Nimble Photographer. Welcome to Recovering Photos from Memory Cards. In this course, I'll identify the most common problems we face with our camera's removable storage and discuss how to address these challenges. I'll focus on using recovery software that works on both Mac and Windows computers, dealing with immersed and broken cards, explaining the difference between erasing and formatting, providing tips for selecting and maintaining removable storage, and sharing a few of the helpful secrets that I've learned over the years. The recovery techniques in this course apply to SD, micro SD, CF cards, and even memory sticks. So please join me for recovering photos from memory cards, and let's build our image recovery strategy right now. Before we get started, I'm going to explain to you just a few of the essential tools that you're going to need. Obviously, you need your camera, but you're also going to need a spare memory card. And why is that? Well, when your one memory card goes bad for whatever reason, you want to take it out right away. And you want to put in a fresh memory card so you can keep taking pictures. Now, that memory card that you take out when you get back to your room or your home, you want to put it in the computer, and you want to use some data recovery software to get those images off. Now, another thing you're going to need is time, because this is not a fast process. It's going to take about 45 minutes or an hour, depending on the size of the card that you have. Once you do that, however, we're going to have you back out in the field and taking pictures again. In the upcoming movies, I'll show you more details about how these steps work. It's a horrible feeling. You look down at your camera and 3 days of vacation shots are gone. You've accidentally erased them. What do? The first thing is don't panic. It's probably going to be okay. The pictures are still on your memory card. You just can't see them. The second thing, do not take any more pictures. If you take new pictures on that memory card, it will push off the old ones. So you don't want to do that. Substitute the memory card that has been quote-unquote erased with a fresh memory card for subsequent shots. Third, when you get back to the hotel room or to your home, run recovery software on the memory card that has been erased, and chances are very good that you will recover all of your photos. So take a deep breath, change your memory card, and know everything is going to be just all right. So what does it mean when you get an error message on your camera? It's sort of like the light going on the dashboard of your car letting you know you need to change the oil or take it in for service. Sometimes it can be something simple, sometimes more complicated. Now, there is some information on the web that could help you decipher error messages. For example, Canon USA publishes some information about the error messages on their camera, and you can see that like error number 2 here, memory card error, just means there's a problem between the communication of the memory card and the camera, and it could be as simple as changing out your memory card. Error number 4, the card's full. Oh, okay, thank you. Change the memory card, you're in business. Some of the error messages, though, are more serious. Now, the first thing I like to do is just make sure the camera just hasn't gone temporarily wacky on me. So I turn off the camera, then I turn it back on. If the error message persists, then I turn off the camera again, change the memory card, and also change the battery, or at least take the battery out and put it back in. Then fire up the camera. A lot of times it's interesting by taking out the battery and putting the battery back in when the camera is off, that will fix a temporary error message that happened just because the camera got confused. Now, if you do all those things and you still have an error message, then you probably need to take your camera in for service and let a professional take a look at it. So cross your fingers that it's something simple, but if it's something more complicated, get it to the service center and get it fixed. Memory cards do get wet, and they often survive. 2 things that may happen to them, you might have done this yourself. One is the old washing the memory card. You have it in your pants pocket, you put your pants in the washing machine, and you wash it. Now, hopefully you find it before it gets to the dryer, because if you do, then all you have to do is let that memory card dry out, and you're probably okay. Memory cards tend to fall in puddles too. And I don't know why that happens. Or shooting on a rainy day and we're changing cards and we get all fumbly fingers. Next thing we know, the memory card is at the bottom of a little puddle there. Again, pull it out of the puddle, shake it out. Don't put it back in your camera. That's the thing, right? When it's wet, don't put it back in the camera. Put it back in your camera case. Let it dry out for a day or so, and then test it back in your camera or upload the pictures immediately to your computer. Some people like to put their memory cards or doused electronic devices in a bag of rice, and that seems to work okay. However, it's not really necessary in this case. Just let it air dry, upload the pictures, and chances are very good that they will be safe and sound, and you can use your memory card again after that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This can be bad. If you physically break your SD card, and it happens most often with SD cards because compact flash cards tend to be a bit more robust in their construction. But if the card physically breaks, you're going to have a hard time recovering data off it because you have no way to read that data. Now, if you try to smush it back together and put it in a card reader, that may work, but then you may compound the problem by jamming your card in the card reader, and then not only have you lost your card, but you've probably lost your card reader too because it's all jammed up. So this just can be bad. Now, one thing I want to say about all of this is that the pro quality SD cards tend to be more robust in their build, and the chances of breaking them are less likely. So investing in a good SD memory card or a good micro SD card may help prevent this situation. However, that being said, if the card breaks, it's probably not going to be good. On occasion, memory cards do get stuck in cameras. It could be that the camera is malfunctioning. Maybe the memory card was incorrectly inserted into the camera. So first thing, just make sure that you're releasing it properly. Some memory cards, you push on them and then they pop out, and maybe it just needs another little push. Maybe the mechanism is just a little stuck. Or if there's a latch or something, make sure that it's unlatched. So once you do the common sense stuff and the memory card still won't budge, I have to be honest with you, you're probably looking at a visit to the service technician, because at this point, then your options are not so good because you're going to manhandle the thing. And if you manhandle the thing, you might break the memory card, and worse yet, you might break it in the camera. So even though you can visualize some of the things you might be able to do, the thing that I'm going to recommend is take it to the service technician and get it fixed properly. If you shoot with SD cards and micro SD cards, here's one that can get you: the lock switch. Now, you may not even realize that there's a lock switch on these things, but there is. It's usually unlocked, and that's probably why you haven't thought about it much. But the lock switch is right here on the edge. Now, when it's in the top position, it's unlocked, and you can read and write to the memory card. But if you accidentally lock it, and I've done this, it's not that hard to do, then the switch goes down here, and it's locked. Now, what happens is when the memory card is locked, you can't read or write to it. It's basically unusable. And some cameras are very good about giving you a clear message. It'll say right on the LCD, your memory card is locked. You have to unlock it. And you go, oh, okay. Now that you've seen this movie, you pull out the memory card and you move this little switch upward, put it back in the camera, and you're in good shape. Some cameras, however, won't be that clear, and they'll say memory card can't be read or written to. And in that case, pull out the memory card, look at the lock switch, and chances are that's what happened. The lock switch, it's very simple, but I'll tell you, it can prevent you from using your memory card. It's good to know how to use it. Once you have a card that you know needs a little bit of help, the first thing that you have to do is test it to see if you can actually recover images from it. Now, software can help you do this, and there are a number of options out there. I have a few of them right here that I'm going to show you. And the process is basically the same for all of them. which is they have a free download. You can download your choice, and then you run the process. And then after the process has run, the software will tell you, yes, you have images on here that can be recovered, and here's what they look like. If you decide that, yes, this is what I want, then you can go ahead and purchase the software, and then it will unlock the feature to allow you to recover your images. That is the basic workflow. Now, we're looking at Recover, and is probably one of the most popular software recovery programs for the Windows platform. Lexar has their own called Image Rescue, and Image Rescue works on both Mac and Windows. So you would go to their site, for example, and then download what's appropriate for you, either the Mac or Windows version. As you can imagine, SanDisk also has their things, and they have a few different flavors, and they also have free downloads for Mac or Windows. So the workflow is pretty straightforward on the first part. Pick a file recovery software that resonates with you, download it, give it a spin with your memory card. If you see on the memory card what you're looking for, then you can decide if you want to purchase the software or not to actually recover those images. Now I'm going to walk through these steps in the next two movies, one on the Mac platform and the other on the Windows platform. I'm going to walk you through the Mac version right now for recovering images off a corrupted memory card, and in the next movie we'll do it on Windows. So the first step is, of course, to get the card in your computer and launch the software. Now, I've downloaded for this exercise Image Rescue 4. It is a Mac version and a Windows version. And one of the reasons why I'm using Image Rescue 4 for this demonstration is because it allows you to actually recover one file. So not only do you get the scan, but you can actually recover one file. And I wanted to show you how that file actually looks after you've recovered it off a corrupted memory card. The other thing I want to point out right now is that sometimes when the memory card goes really bad on you, the computer won't even recognize it at first. And if you launch the recovery software, sometimes that recovery software can actually help the computer identify the card also. So if you don't see the card right away when you put it in the computer or put it in the card reader for the computer, launch the software and see if that helps. So the first step here is to start recovering images or scanning the memory card, and it's doing it right now. And here's the next thing. So we're kind of through the scan a bit. Here are the number of images on that memory card that I was showing you earlier. So if I was to put this memory card in a camera, for example, or in regular photo management software, they would say you have 268 images on that card. Now, actually, I have a lot more than that because the recovery software has already found 516 images and is still working. Now, that's to the point that when you erase or you format your memory card, it doesn't actually delete the images. Most of the time, it's either deleting the file names for those images or rewriting the directory, but the pictures stay on there until they get pushed off by more pictures. And this illustrates that quite well. Here we are, it's finished, the scan. So on my memory card that listed 268 items, it actually found 635 pictures. Now this took a bit. This was about half an hour or so for an 8 gigabyte card. So you do need a little bit of time to run these scans. The next step is then to actually recover some or all of the shots. Now I get one free recovery, right, in demo mode here. Obviously, if I paid the fees for the software, then I could recover everything. But I wanted to show it to you, so I get one free one. I went ahead and selected 3 just to see what it would say. Well, it asked me for the destination. So where are you going to put these images that you're recovering off the memory card? So you create a directory on your computer, create a folder where they're going to live. Now, the general rule of thumb is for free space on your computer, you need twice as much as the size of your card. So, for example, This is an 8 gigabyte card, so I should have 16 gigabytes of free space available on my computer for the full recovery process. So I went ahead and selected 3, and then it said, no. Demo mode only allows you to recover 1 file. So I said, okay, I'll do that. So I only made 1 selection here. I got rid of these 3 and just did 1. And I want to show you what the photo looks like after it recovered it. So here's the shot right here, and it did a very nice job. The photo looks great. It looks as I remember. I can't even remember when I took this photo. I did not know that this photo was even on this memory card. Only through the recovery process did I find it. But if you do get info on this photo, there are a few things that are worth noting. One is the original file name is gone, and the photo recovery software assigns its own file name to it. And that makes perfect sense, right? Because that's what erasing a photo is when you do it with your camera. It's really taking away the file name and a few other bits of information. Another thing that I noticed is that the metadata in general seems to be wiped out. So for example, the creation date right here isn't when I took the photo. It's when I recovered the photo off the memory card. And as you can see, that was kind of late the other night. Photo recovery tends to happen at weird hours because you just sort of let it run while you do other things. So the creation date becomes the date that you actually try to recover the shot. And then the other thing that is very good news in this category is that in terms of the file size, the resolution, it's full resolution. I got, all of the data that was actually in the photo, all of the pixels. So that part is pretty good. So that's the basic walkthrough that most photo recovery software does. Each brand has, variations in this process, but generally speaking, what it'll do is it will scan your card. It will show you the pictures that are available. And then depending on what the pay structure is and so forth, it will allow you to download them and save them to your computer. And once you buy the software, then you have the software. So it's not like you're paying for just this one recovery. You have the software and you can keep it on your computer for future use. We tested a few different applications for the Windows platform for recovering photos. I'm going to start with Image Rescue 4 right now just to give you a feel of how that works. So when you first load the software and you have your card in, you have the opportunity to start the scan, which I did. And it putted along pretty well. It started scanning the card and finding files. Now, it took a little bit longer than some of the other software that we tested, but it seemed quite reliable. It did a good job. It worked nice and steady. About the 10-minute mark, we were close to 80%, and it had found 696 files. If you watch the movie where we did photo recovery on the Mac, we were using the same card there. So I thought it was interesting that Image Rescue for Windows found a few more files than it did on the Mac. And when it was all said and done, it found 793. And I browsed through the different files here, taking a look at what was there, and it did look very similar. And when it was time to try to recover one or two, I got the message that the function's disabled in the unregistered version, which I somewhat expected. This is the demo version. And it asked me if I wanted to register now. Now, again, if you watch the Mac version, it allowed us to download one to test it. The Windows version makes you register before you can download any of them. So I went ahead and clicked on the Yes button, and it said, okay, well, enter your registration number here. And I didn't have that, obviously, still working with the demo. So I clicked on the Purchase button to see what we would get. And you can't purchase this software right on the Lexar site. What they do instead is they refer you to a where to buy page where they list a number of their partners, their retail partners. So in that case, I would pick one of those, go there and buy the software, and then come back to the page, enter the registration number, and then be able to recover images. After that, we tested Stellar Phoenix Photo Recovery, And right away when the software loaded up, I did like the UI. I think it looks nice. And I love this giant blue button. You know, how could you miss what to do here? So I clicked on it. And the other thing that I liked was that it right away identified our drive and pulled it up and put it right in front of me so that I know that it's working with my removable media drive, that it's 7.4 gigabytes, which is my 8 gigabyte card. And all I had to do was press the Start Scan button to put it to work. And it moved quickly. I tell you, it moved through the same card. Again, we use the same card for all of our testing. It moved through it in about 10 minutes, and that was the fastest of any of the software that I tested. After it finished the scan, then it listed all the files there, and I could click OK. And I knew this was demo software also, so when I clicked on the blue Recover button, then I was expecting it to take me somewhere so I could register the software. And they did indeed, and they brought me over to their page. And I thought this was a bit more convenient because I could buy the software right here on their site. I didn't have to go off to a partner. So in theory, I would go ahead and choose what I wanted to buy. After I make the purchase, I just come back to the recovery page, enter my name and the key that I get from the purchase, and then the software will be unlocked and I can recover all or some of those files that we're looking at. And we did try Recover also, and Recover is talked about a lot on a lot of different sites. The Windows version is free, and we tried it a bit, but I didn't find it as effective or as easy to work with as Stellar and or even the Lexar software for that matter. So my bottom line of these three was Stellar Phoenix. I thought it was pretty good stuff, and I thought the price was reasonable. And the reason why we're walking you through this is not only will you have a feel for the process and know what to expect when you try to recover photos from your memory card, but also to give you a feel what to look for in the different types of software and maybe find the software that resonates best with your needs. What happens when you erase pictures on your camera? Well, not as much as you may think. Let's walk through the scenario for a second. You have a bunch of shots on your camera and you want to get rid of some of them. They're just not working for you. So, for instance, you look into this and you go, this has got to go. I don't want this. So you hit the little trash can button and it starts out with no because remember, erasing is still serious stuff. And you go, no, actually, yes, I do want to erase it. So you go to yes, you hit the OK button, and the picture goes away and it's off your memory card, right? Actually, that's wrong. The picture is still on your memory card. All your camera has done is change the file name or delete the file name, and it got rid of some other information, but it left some other information behind. And then some of the stuff that was left behind was the picture itself. The camera can't identify it anymore because it took away all the labeling information. So what does that mean? Well, that means on the good news side that yes, you can recover pictures. You just need special software to do it because they're still there. That is if you recover them early enough, because over time, as you add more pictures to the memory card, the old ones that are, quote, deleted finally do get pushed off. So this is all very interesting stuff. And then what does this have to do with formatting? Well, we're going to cover that in an upcoming movie. I'm going to talk about the difference between erasing pictures off your memory card and formatting the card itself. When you go to the menu, generally speaking, you're given the option between the two. And most of the time, we pick erase. We'll either erase individually or we'll erase all the images. And we tend to overlook this right here, which is format. And format is actually a better way to go. Why? When you erase a picture, all it does is take away the file name and some of the information, but it leaves other information behind. And over time, all this other information, what I like to call cruft, begins to add up, and it can actually corrupt your memory card. When you format, it takes away all the information except for the pictures. The pictures still stay there and sets up a brand new, fresh, clean directory. All the cruft goes away. And in fact, when you get a brand new memory card, you should format it. That allows the camera to set up the directory so it works best with that camera. And if you move a memory card from one camera to another, guess what? Format it. That's right. And that way it'll work great with that camera, and it keeps all the cruft away. Now, I know I don't need to say this, but I'm just going to mention it. Don't do any of this until your pictures are backed up, right? They have to be safe somewhere. And I prefer, my personal feeling, I like to have pictures backed up in 2 spots before I format or erase. There is recovery software that can help us recover those pictures that no longer have names, but it's a lot of work, and it's much easier just to have good practice while you're using your memory card. So use format when you have a brand new memory card or when you move a memory card from one camera to another. And format instead of all erase, just to keep things nice and clean and tidy. Here's a process we're all familiar with. You connect your camera to your computer either via USB cable or using a memory card reader, put the card right in. Upload the pictures to your favorite application or to the Finder. And a lot of times when you do that, especially when you're using an application, you're presented with an option after it's done grabbing the pictures. And that option is, should I delete the items or should I keep them? Now, the menu may look different depending on which application you're using, but the option's usually very similar to that. What you should choose is keep the items. You don't want the computer messing around with your memory card. Take the memory card out of the computer, make sure that it's properly ejected, or disconnect the cable, your USB cable, and then with your camera, use the format command and reformat the card in the camera. That allows the camera to set up the directory specifically for that camera, and you'll get much better performance that way. And you also lessen the odds of having card corruption, which could lead to problems up the road. So the option is, as tempting as it may be to delete those items right away on the computer, pass on that. Make sure your images are fully backed up, and at the appropriate time, erase the card or, as I prefer, format the card in the camera. We're looking at 3 SD memory cards here. This is one type of memory card. There's compact flash, there's micro SD, but the standards are usually pretty close. And I want to explain to you some of the differences among these cards. Let's start with the actual name of the card itself, SDHC. We have that on all 3 of these. And that has to do with capacity. There are basically 3 different designations right now. Regular SD, those are only good up to 2 gigabytes. SDHC, which are good up to 32 gigabytes. So SDHC goes from 4 gigabytes to 32. And then there's a newer standard, SDXC, and that's 32 gigabytes to 2 terabytes. Now, I don't think there's a 2 terabyte card out yet, but the standard will allow for it once they figure out how to do it. All right, so that is the SD designation. Now let's take a look at some of these other little marks on here. We have the C with the number in it, and that stands for class. So we have a class 4 card here and a class 10 card. The class 10 is a high-speed bus, and that is good for full HD video recording. Class 2, 4, and 6, they consider that a normal bus. And you can do video recording also, but it's not quite as fast. Generally speaking, if you're doing a lot of full HD video recording, go with class 10. They're not that hard to find. In fact, I think they are the most common now. Another fun little mark on here is this little U with a 1, and that is UHS Speed Class. Isn't this fun? This is like alphabet soup, isn't it? So the 1 means that's the higher potential of recording real-time broadcasts. It's a bus speed is what it is. Now, I've only seen 1, but there is a 3 standard also, and that's capable of recording 4K video. So as these newer cameras become more common, we'll probably start to see more of the 3 designation there. All right, so that's kind of the hard stuff. Then we have some easier stuff, right? Like how many gigabytes? So we have 8, 16, and 32 here. That has to do with storage. And if you're shooting JPEGs only, you can probably get by with 8 or 16 gigabytes. If you're shooting a lot of RAW files and video, you probably want to think about going 32 gigabyte or even higher. That'll give you a little bit more room to save your files. And then there is the professional level card. For example, here we have an Extreme Pro by SanDisk. Here we have the Ultra. The Ultra is the consumer model. The Extreme Pro is the professional model. The card itself is more robust. It has a better case. It has a better build. It can withstand colder temperatures. And the electronics inside are also better too, and more high performance. You do pay more for the Pro version, but you actually do get more. Megabits per second, that's also listed on the card here. You'll see on the Pro, we're at 45 megabits per second. That is a transfer speed. And over here, we're at 15 megabits per second. That's slower, as you can guess. And we also have 40 megabits per second in the middle card here. That has to do with how fast you can move information from the buffer of the camera to the card itself. And as you might expect, the higher the number, the faster the transfer rate. And usually the higher the transfer rate, the more expensive the card. But it does pay off, and especially if you're shooting RAW files in burst mode, then you probably want a higher number, such as 40 megabits per second or 45. So even though you look at a wall of SD cards and they appear the same, except for some different branding and color, if you look at the numbers, you can figure out which card is best suited for you. I have a few tips for you to keep your memory cards happy and healthy. Some of them are kind of logical, actually, very common sense, such as keeping them in their protective cases. And this is particularly true with SD cards and micro SD cards because they have some of their components exposed, as we'll get to later on in this movie. So keep them protected, whether you use a plastic case for individually storing your cards or you have a nice memory card case. Whatever you have, use that. Don't have them banging around the bottom of your sock drawer because that can just lead to problems. Also, use some care when you're removing them and putting them in your camera and also in a card reader if you do use a card reader. Some folks use USB cables. Some folks use card readers. If you use a card reader, be careful when you're pushing it in and out that you don't damage it. And another thing about cameras, make sure that the camera's powered down before you pull out the card or you insert the card. So the proper way to do it is make sure the camera's off, gently put the card in the camera, turn on the camera, and off to the races you go. It sounds simple, but it makes a difference. And again, it especially makes a difference with the more fragile cards, such as the SD cards. These contacts on the back here, don't touch them. They're not for touching. And the reason why is that the oil from your skin can interfere with their performance. Now, if you do end up accidentally touching them and getting some of your skin oil on there, you can wipe it off with a nice soft cloth and keep it nice and clean. But those contacts are not to be touched. They are just for purpose of the camera and the memory card talking to each other. Also, when you get a brand new card, format it in the camera so that you can set up the proper directory system. And if you're moving a card around from camera to camera, one of the first steps is to format it when you put it in the different camera. And I would say that's even if you're moving it from the same brand camera to another same brand camera. Things can be different over time. You want to make sure that the camera has the ability to customize the card for maximum performance. Do these few simple things, and with a little bit of luck, you should have a long, happy life with each of your memory cards. I have 2 bonus tips for you. Both of these come out of experience. The first one is it's great to be able to identify your memory cards in case they're lost or misplaced. And on SD cards, that's not always so easy because this little space right here, well, unless you have very little to say, you're going to have a hard time fitting it in there. However, if you keep your cards in protective cases, then you can do the writing right on the case itself. Now, I usually like to add my cell phone number so that in case someone finds it in a faraway place who doesn't know me, then they can call me and I can actually retrieve my card. And I have a real life story with this. When I was working in Iceland with the Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Adventure, there were 12 of us, and one of the photographers, she's terrific, her name is Maggie Hallahan, just had a wonderful shoot the whole week. She just did beautiful work, and she left a whole stack of memory cards with the images on them in the rental car. And fortunately, she had put her name on the memory cards, and when she was heading to the airport on the shuttle, she got a call from the rental car company saying that they had retrieved her cards, and she took the shuttle back, got them, caught her flight, and avoided disaster. So this can really save the day. Now, my second tip has to do with a USB cable and not a memory card. And I like to carry a USB cable with me, even though I use a memory card reader. And the reason being is I've had situations where for some reason my computer with the built-in memory card reader or an external memory card reader just could not read the memory card. I think the memory card was getting ready to go, but it wasn't fully gone yet. And I have tried on 2 occasions to use the USB cable connected from the camera to the computer with the card inside of the camera, and it worked. It worked, and I don't know why. Maybe there was something wrong with the contacts or something like that. But I think having the USB cable with you, in addition to whatever you're doing with a memory card reader, is a nice safety net. I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me and learning a little bit more about memory cards and how they work and how to recover photos from them. Moving forward, I do have a few reminders for you. First of all, take good care of your memory cards. Try to stay away from photo recovery scenarios, and just by taking good care of them physically and also on how you manage the data on them, you could prevent from ever having to use photo recovery software. And speaking of that, I recommend that you format the card instead of erase all. I like cleaning up those directories and eliminating any cruft that may be remaining on your card after you use erase all. And I recommend that you shop for your recovery software before you actually need it. This will give you a chance to download demos of your leading candidates, test them a bit, and have your favorite ready to go. That way, if something does happen, you don't have to go through the whole shopping process at that time. And as you saw, if you watched our Windows movie, they do vary in the user experience quite a bit, and that's also true on the Mac side of things. And then finally, cross your fingers that you'll never need to use any of that recovery software at all. I wish you the best of luck moving forward with your photography, and I look forward to working with you again.